Now that we are aware how oxygen is transported, we have to take into consideration the transport of carbon dioxide, another important gas. One thing you have to remember before we get into thick of things, that transport of carbon dioxide is comparatively easier as in terms of oxygen, because the solubility of carbon dioxide is more as compared to oxygen. So, the transport would be easier. In any case, if there is more oxygen and less carbon dioxide, then also the carbon dioxide's binding and transport would be preferred because of its higher solubility. Now, how transport of carbon dioxide takes place? There are three methods in which it would be carried out. First one is in the dissolved state in the plasma itself. So, we have in the dissolved state. Second one is in the form of bicarbonate ions, okay. And third one is in combination with amine group of the protein. Which protein? Hemoglobin. So, over here we are talking about carb amino hemoglobin that would be formed in the blood itself. So, individually we are going to take each one of these. In the dissolved state, the transport of carbon dioxide is as much as 5 to 7% of carbon dioxide would be transported in the dissolved state. When I talk about in the form of bicarbonate ions, these bicarbonate ions would be able to carry as much as of 70% of carbon dioxide to the tissues. They would be contributing to 70% transport of carbon dioxide. And when I talk about carb amino hemoglobin, this is as much as 23% of the entire carbon dioxide transport. Individually taking each one, when we talk about the dissolved state, you know that the partial pressure of the venous blood for carbon dioxide is 45 mm of mercury, and that of arterial blood it is 40. So, if a clear-cut distinction is to be made in terms of carbon dioxide, then this is as much as 2.7 milliliter of CO2 per 100 milliliter of blood, and in the case of arterial blood this is 2.4. This has gone a little bit opposite. This would be venous, arterial, and this would be venous, not the opposite. See over here, this is the arterial and this is the venous blood. The difference, I wrote it opposite earlier. Now what I am trying to tell you is this is 45 mg for arterial blood, this is 40 mg for venous blood, which is 2.7 milliliter of carbon dioxide per 100 milliliter of blood, and here it is 2.4 milliliter. Now you see how much carbon dioxide is being delivered. This is around 0.03 milliliter of carbon dioxide would be delivered per 100 milliliter of blood in the dissolved state. Now coming to the second method, that is in the form of bicarbonate. Now what happens is that the carbon dioxide, it diffuses into the blood, goes into the RBCs, and in the RBCs there is presence of a compound or enzyme that is known as carbonic anhydrase. Okay, this is one of the fastest compounds. It increases the reaction rate as much as 1 million times, 10 million times, that is the pace that this enzyme provides. This carbonic anhydrase is present inside the RBCs. Now when the carbon dioxide diffuses into the blood and goes into RBCs, it combines with water over there to form carbonic acid. Alright, this carbonic acid is formed in the presence of this carbonic anhydrase. Now this carbonic acid, it breaks down into protons, that is H positive ions, and carbonate ions, bicarbonate ions. So this is what we get as a result of this binding. This is all taking place inside the RBCs. Now inside the RBCs there is potassium ions which have got bound to oxyhemoglobin, and as a result of this binding, they break down into this and this oxygen gets separated from here, okay. This oxygen would be separated. These hydrogen ions, they would come and bind over here, they would replace this potassium and form HHB, and oxygen would be released. Now these bicarbonates, they would be diffusing to the tissues. So this is what takes place when we talk about the transfer of carbon dioxide in the form of bicarbonate. What happens at the site when carbon dioxide is taken up from the tissues, it would come inside the RBCs, it would combine with the water present in the RBCs and form carbonic acid in the presence of carbonic anhydrase. Alright, when carbonic acid is formed, it dissociates into hydrogen ions and bicarbonate ions. These bicarbonate ions are able to diffuse out easily at the site, that is lungs, and these protons, they combine with hemoglobin. So easily we can see that this is the bicarbonate ion that is transporting the carbon dioxide. Again, when this has to give out, this is to be given out in the form of carbon dioxide, these bicarbonates would combine with these protons and they would form carbonic acid. So the reaction would take place in a reversible manner. This is a reversible reaction that takes place. Only difference that lies is that one of the reaction, if it is going in forward way, that takes place at the site of tissues where the exchange is taking place, and if the reaction is going backward, that is this recombination would take place to form the carbonic acid, and that carbonic acid would give rise to carbon dioxide in the presence of carbonic anhydrase. Again, that reaction would take place at lungs, in the alveoli of lungs, where the carbon dioxide is to be given out to the atmosphere. If the carbon dioxide is taken from the tissues, it would combine in the forward reaction. So this is what takes place inside the RBCs, and this is how the bicarbonate ions are able to transport the carbon dioxide from the tissues to the lungs, where it can be thrown out of the lungs. Now the last method that the transport of CO2 takes place in is with the combination of carbon dioxide with the amine group of the protein that forms the carb amino hemoglobin. Now this is like oxyhemoglobin only, and it combines with the hemoglobin that was released over here. The carbon dioxide would combine with, this has nothing to do with this hemoglobin, I am just referring that hemoglobin basically. The hemoglobin that would be present in the RBCs, that would not be used by oxygen, or that would be left alone with once the oxygen has been given out, they would combine with carbon dioxide molecules and they would form carb amino hemoglobin. When the deoxygenated blood, it is reaching the lungs, it would be released, there would be a condition, that is the lower pH and higher temperature conditions, which enable the breaking of the bond of carb amino hemoglobin, and carbon dioxide would be released as it is. So these are the three ways in which the transport of carbon dioxide takes place. Projector representation would be able to make you understand in a better way. So for the better understanding, next we are going to see how this transport takes place by a pictorial illustration.